For the sake of this demonstration, I'm going to be using a random video clip that I recorded a while back. So, to place keyframes using Inspector, we need to come to the Inspector panel and locate the keyframe controls that are next to the parameters. And all we need to do is simply click on the keyframe control in order to set up a keyframe. Okay, so let's do a couple more examples to better understand how this works. So let's come down to the timeline here, and let's go to another frame. And let's go ahead and set up a keyframe. And let's go to another frame here. Let's go ahead and set up another keyframe. So you will see that where the playhead is positioned is going to determine where the keyframe is going to be. So that's very important to remember. Okay, so now next to the keyframe control, you will notice the right and left arrow. Clicking these will allow you to go back and forth among different frames very easily. So this is a super cool feature that you definitely want to leverage when you're working with multiple keyframes. Okay, so let's go ahead and adjust the zoom parameters for the second keyframe. And I want to make it a little bit dramatic so that it can better illustrate how different effects work here. Okay, so let's play this particular clip. Okay, so this is definitely working as I expected. Perfect. Okay, so to adjust how smooth that you want the transitions to be, all we need to do is just right-click the keyframe control, and you will see all the options that we have here. We're going to select ease in and ease out for this particular frame. And let's go to another frame, and let's also adjust the smoothness by right-clicking the keyframe control. And let's go ahead and select ease out for this one. So if we play this part right here, you will notice that the zoom in and the zoom out is not as sudden as it was before. So this is great. Okay, so now one last thing is to remove the keyframes. All we need to do is to locate the keyframes and then click on the keyframe controls again, and that will completely remove all the keyframes that we set up earlier. To use the keyframe editor, we actually have to come to the Inspector panel first to set a keyframe, just like we did earlier. But once the initial keyframe is set, we'll then be able to use the keyframe editor. The location of the initial keyframe doesn't really matter. As you will see later on, we can easily change that. Okay, so now, once the initial keyframe is set, let's come down to the bottom right corner of the video clip. You'll notice this keyframe logo. Let's click on that. This will reveal actually right now a portion of the keyframe editor. But to see the whole thing, to see everything that's inside the keyframe editor, let's click on the expand button at the top right corner. Let's go ahead and do that, and now you will see that all the parameters that are within the keyframe editor. So as you can see right now, one of the biggest advantage of using keyframe editor is that you can easily spot where the keyframe is. Therefore, the initial location doesn't really matter because you can easily come down here and adjust it. As you can see how easy that is. You just click on it, drag it to any location that you want. This is one of the biggest advantage of using keyframe editor compared to using just the Inspector panel. Okay, so just FYI also guys, the reason why Zoom X and Y are moving at the same time is because they're chained together right now. Okay, so now let's go ahead and set a couple more keyframes here. Let's go to this frame. Let's go ahead and set the keyframe. Let's go ahead and do more. So as you guys can see how easy it is to spot the location of the keyframe and how easy it is to change it. This is the beauty of using keyframe editor. And also to go back and forth, all we can do is just use the playhead, and it's because we can easily spot the location of the keyframe. Or you can use the right and left arrow still, if you prefer that. Doesn't matter. It's up to you to decide which one you prefer. Okay, so let's also adjust the zoom parameter a little bit. Perfect. And now to adjust the easing, we can simply click the keyframe and then right click, and this will reveal all your options. You can change it here, or you can come to the keyframe control, just like before, and right click the keyframe control and do that as well. Again, there are multiple ways of doing the same thing. It's just depends on your preference. Okay, so now when we play this, it looks really good. Perfect. Okay, so now one more thing. I want to kind of also add another parameter. And I want to show you guys how easy it is when you have multiple parameters and how easy it is to work with them, because you can easily, again, visually spot where each keyframe is. Okay, let's go ahead and set another one here. What I want is that when we zoom in, that the barbell stays in frame. Because before, as you can see that when the video zooms in, the barbell kind of goes out of frame. So I want it so that when the video zooms in, the barbell still stays in frame. So okay, let's go ahead and set one more, bring it back to the initial location. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and play this part of the video. As you can see, the barbell is still in frame when the video zooms in. Perfect, awesome. So again, guys, I want to demonstrate, this is another big advantage of using Keyframe Editor, is that when you have multiple parameters, it is very easy to work with them in the Keyframe Editor. To use the Curve Editor, just like the Keyframe Editor, we actually need to go to the Inspector panel first and to set the initial keyframe. But once the initial keyframe is set, we can simply look for the curve logo that are next to the keyframe logo and click on that, and that will reveal the entire Curve Editor. Now, just like the Keyframe Editor, the location of the initial keyframe doesn't really matter, because you can simply click on the keyframe and change the location easily. Now, to set the keyframe, we can use the keyframe controls in the Curve Editor, or we can use the keyframe control in the Inspector panel. Or my personal preference is actually to hover over part of the curve where you want to set the keyframe and hit Option key and click. So that will set the keyframe, and not only is this easy, but it's also super quick, and it's great for work when you are working with multiple keyframes. Now, to go back and forth among multiple keyframes, you can use the playhead, or you can use the left and right arrows in the Curve Editor, or you can use the left and right arrows in the Inspector panel. It all depends on your preference. Okay, let's go ahead and adjust the parameters by dragging the keyframe up. And also you can change the location, the position of the keyframe at the same time as you adjust the parameters. So it's definitely way more flexible compared to the other methods. Now, to change the interpolation, let's right click, and that will reveal the menus that we have seen before. Or we can right click the keyframe controls in the Curve Editor, or the keyframe controls under the Inspector panel. But my personal preference is actually use the 4 Bezier controls that are in the Curve Editor. And let's go ahead and select ease in, ease out, which is the second one. And that will bring up actually the Bezier handles. And by simply dragging that and changing that, that will adjust how much easing you want between your zoom in, zoom out, and how much easing, how smooth you want the transition to be for that keyframe. Okay, let's do that for one more. Let's go back to the beginning and play this part of the video clip. As you can see that it is way much smoother. That's great, that's perfect. Okay, so another thing, guys, I want to actually add another parameters here. So to do that, let's go to the top left corner and then bring up the drop-down menu for all the parameters. And in this case, let's actually go to Precision Y by simply clicking on that, and that will bring up the Precision Y curve. So immediately you will notice that the zoom curve is now dimmed. But that doesn't mean we cannot work with it again. To work with the zoom curve again, all we need to do is just simply click on the zoom curve, and that will bring up the zoom curve. So as you can see in the Curve Editor, it's very easy when you have multiple parameters. And then when if you want to work with that curve, you can simply just click on it, and that will bring up that curve. And it will dim all the other curves that you don't want to work with. Okay, guys, now let's go ahead and set the keyframes, and let's also adjust the location of the keyframes so that they're all lined up properly. Okay, that looks great. Now to change the parameter, let's bring that down a little so that the barbell is in frame. Okay, that's perfect. So now if we play this part of the video, you will see that when the video zooms in and zoom out, the barbell is in frame the whole time. Perfect. Okay, guys, one last thing is that to remove the keyframe, we can either use the keyframe control in the Curve Editor like we did before, or we can use keyboard shortcut by clicking on the keyframe and hit the delete button, and that will completely remove the keyframe. Okay, guys, all in all, the Curve Editor is fantastic. It may not be as quick as the Keyframe Editor in some cases, but it definitely gives you the absolute maximum control compared to the other methods.